the names to fill my Rolodex. Yeah. He say, she say, that's gonna get you real perplexed. For real. Answer the call, that's my advance. Grab the U-Haul. What? Quick with the ball, pack up my bag, swift with the wall. Get it? A minute to give it my all. Check that. No stress, greetings to all. Oh. Look, that's gonna be your bag. What? This gonna be my reason why I bless her, we so glad. I got my own say, yeah. I play my own way. We gon' crank it, bust a move and watch me celebrate. Look, stop that he say, she say. Quit it. That's that he say, she say. You run your mouth. Stop that he say, she say. Cut it out. That's that he say, she say. Word. Yo. That's that he say, she say. Yeah, that's what he said. Like, that's that he say, she say. Really? Alright. That's that he say, she say. So this how I'm about to handle this right here. That's that he say, she say. Look. So you got that life now, huh? Time I made it known. Still kept it on the low. Gotta snap back in my zone. I got you. But I'ma be the first. A couple other plans are well rehearsed. I kinda like Uno now reversed. I said a lot of prayers my 21st. Now that's your bag. Wow. You gon' shout respect back. You gon' grab my backpack. Hit that run, I run track. Flip that switch. I'm gon' need that feedback. Get don't miss. Man, I love my comeback. I love it. Back to this. I'm gon' need that soundtrack. Autumn bliss. Wait for this. Intelligent. We meant for this. Love. Stop that he say, she say. Quit it. That's that he say, she say. You run your mouth. Stop that he say, she say. Cut it out. That's that he say, she say. Y'all some whack diamonds for that. Straight up. That's that he say, she say. Real talk, yo. That's that he say, she say. Wow, I must really get it. That's that he say, she say. You want this right here. That's that he say, she say.
Yeah, okay. Your money ain't long enough either.
Nah. It's really not. But okay, I'll let you have it.
Yeah.
Cause that's that he say, she say.
Hello, hello, hello. Ooh, oh. Hi, everybody. This is going to be a great show, so don't pay this any attention. How's everybody doing today? Thank you for tuning in to another BMSTE radio show. It is Monday at 7 o'clock p.m., so you know what that means. It means that we're on for some great conversation. And today's show kicks off our 3-week span of the Out of Time takeover. So as you all know by now that I have started to produce a play called Out of Time. I am the creator and the executive producer of the play, and we are going to allow them to take over the show for the next few weeks. So we're going to have some great shows coming up. So tonight's the kickoff. But let's get some housekeeping out the way. So we want to thank our sponsors. We have the Peaceful Soul Collection. Get all of your self-care goods from peacefulsoulcollection.com. You can also go to Simple Sweets, simple_sweets on IG and look at all of her amazing creations. And then we have Girls Talk Atlanta. We do not just connect with individuals in the DMV, we connect all across the globe. So anybody who would like to be a sponsor of our show, please contact us at bmsteradioshow.com or at bmsteradio@bmste.com. If you would like to be a guest or have something you want to promote, please contact us at bmsteradio@bmste.com or at come to our website at bmsteradioshow.com. Great things, great things, great things. I'm so excited for this conversation. I have these questions that I wrote down, but we had a pre-conversation in the parking lot. I'm going to switch up all my questions just about because it was a great conversation. So just to give you guys a little backstory on the play is about the Douglas family. And the Douglas family has a lot of secrets that is potentially tearing their family apart. And it happens naturally in our community where there are a lot of secrets, things get swept under the rug, and we don't always understand or get the repercussions of those secrets or actions of other individuals that may do things in the family. And this play, I would say, is a six-dimensional story about how family secrets can really tear apart a family. So we definitely want you guys to come out and get tickets. You can get tickets at a time theplay.eventbrite.com, and you can get your tickets now. They're on sale. So we would like to introduce our special guests that are on the panel. We'll start with you, Ms. Sharon.
Hello, my name is Sharon Dansby, and I am an author, a speaker, a coach, and a facilitator. My book I wrote is called Journey Through the Furnace, God is There, and it's about the same kind of subject that we're going to talk about tonight.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Antoinelle Hansley. My name is Antoinelle Hansley, and I am the daughter of Sharon Dansby, and I will be also contributing to this conversation today.
And Mr. E.
And I'm Mr. E. Emmanuel Wright. I'm the director of the play.
Right. Awesome. You're being so modest. You have a lot of other things going on, Mr. E. What else are you? A business owner? Come on, Mr. E. Come on.
Business owner of EMW Effects, and I do lighting designs and, of course, special effects, pyrotechnics, and all that.
Awesome. So he has a lot going on. He's being modest here. He's the one that's going to take the words of Keontae, my creation, Keontae's words, and Mr. E's direction, and we're going to have a phenomenal play.
Yes.
So it takes a team to do anything. You can't do anything all alone. So make sure you partner and collaborate with people to help your visions come true. So, Miss Sharon,
Yes.
tell us a little bit about where your journey on this began. Like, why did you get on this mission to write your book? And I also understand you have a nonprofit. How did you get on that road, and how did you get on this? Everybody has a cause, but why did you pick this cause?
You know, when I wrote my book, Journey Through the Furnace, this was like 30-something years after the incident of incest happened in our family. When it first happened, I thought I was going to write a book because I thought I was going to help everybody, but you have to heal. Because when I started writing that book, I started crying more than anything. And I realized that I really needed a lot of help because there were a lot of family secrets that we have never even talked about. A lot of it came out during the counseling sessions that we went through after my daughter was molested. My ex-husband, I reported it. He went to prison. And that whole process, there wasn't anybody that held my hand and knew what I needed to do next. So that was my desire, is to help families to understand what happens, because we know it happens. We just know that people don't talk about it, but it happens. And so when I started writing, I retired from the government after 34 years, and then I decided that I am going to write this book. And so as I wrote the book, my sisters came along and they said, oh, no, you got to include our stories. You got to put that in there. And the more I started putting together the book, the more I saw the problem of sexual abuse within a family and how everybody had kept it secret until I came out and my daughter disclosed it, and then secrets started coming out from everywhere. So I wrote the book. I was expecting my mother to be very angry because it was a lot of things. You know, we grew up in that time where what happens in this house stays in this house, and so you never tell anybody what happened. So here I am now and going to expose it to the whole world. But the good thing that came out of it is that after my mother cried, she kind of called us together, and after all of these years, it hit her what we had been through and the things that we had experienced that, number one, she contributed to some, but some of it she didn't even know about because we didn't trust her enough to tell her. So that was my passion. It became a passion to really help people, to educate them about the process, to educate them about what happens in the family dynamics. So then I started a nonprofit. It's called Maximizing God's Woman, a strange name for a nonprofit that wants to deal with sexual abuse. But I saw that the one thing that was holding a lot of women back was their past. They had never, ever dealt with their past. They were in relationships. They were having experience with drugs. They were having everything that sabotaged them and never go back to the root problem of they were molested as kids and they never dealt with it.
Wow. And how many generations was in your family of sexual assault?
That's his mic.
I can actually think it was with my generation, my mom's generation. So I would think at least 2 to 3 generations. I would say that has happened in our family.
And how was it watching your mom go through this process?
Well, it was rough when I disclosed the information about being molested because it was very hurtful to have to talk to my mother about it because I know that she loved my father. And then I know that I found out later that she was abused herself and probably hadn't quite dealt with it. So she had to hurry up and heal for herself so that she could help me. So that was even more painful to talk about when you know that somebody else is hurting also.
Speak more into the mic. They keep saying they can't hear you.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And Mr. E, you come from a different approach on this conversation because you also have a background in law enforcement. So getting a call, a mom finds out that her daughter is being molested and sexually assaulted by the father. How does law enforcement handle such a call?
Very delicately. Some of the stuff, I mean, you're trained for it, but then some of the things you're not trained for. You know, for those quick emotions that just pop up. Because, I mean, we're human too. And when you respond to the situation, you go by what the call is from dispatch. So you get there, and then you have all these different stories. You know, he did this, she did that. You're not sure who to believe. But you have to go with, your victim, your gut feelings. You just struck a nerve. I just thought of something. I was like, wow. I just reflecting back on some of the situations I just went through. It just flashed back through my head real quick. But it's difficult, and then you have to break it down. You have to call the proper authorities, and you get child protective services involved in it, and you end up in courts. And, the thing that makes officers, upset the most is that you see the victim right back to where everything started at, and we're kind of limited on some things. You can go through, you can talk to your attorneys, you can talk to different counselors and stuff like that to see if they can intervene and help out, but you kind of got once you leave the situation, it's a repeat, or you just kind of let it go. And that's the tough part.
And how old were you when you decided to tell your mother? Were you a child, or was it when you were an adult after it had happened, or did you tell when it was actually going on?
The first time I told my mom, I was 9. And I don't know if anything became of that. We've talked about that later in my life, that she didn't recall me ever telling her that when I was younger. But I did tell her it continued. So I told her again at 12, and that's when she took action and, filed the charges, and it went from there. So it started when I was a child.
And you told when you were 12?
9 and 12.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So when you were 12, from a mother's perspective, and this is one of the things that I'm always confused about, and how I think that we need more intervention, is how does a mother handle hearing her daughter is being molested by the man that she's married to, and was there any services out there to help you navigate through that? Because I can only imagine how many layers you had to deal with to actually process what your daughter was telling you.
First of all, when she told me, this is later, she told me when she was 9, I sat there and I could not remember her telling me. Not that she didn't tell me, I could not remember. And I said, God, did I shut down? Was it so painful that I couldn't even process it? I mean, because it hurt me to think that 3 more years she went through abuse because she told me something and I didn't do anything. That was hard for me to accept, that that could have even happened. But when she was 12, she wrote me a letter, and she gave me that letter. And I think that really, really helped, because when I looked at it, I couldn't believe it. I stood there, and it was all like all the insides just fell out of me. It was like, what? And I read it again, and I thought, oh my God. So the first thing I did, because I was a Christian, and I called my pastor. And he said, this is a felony. He said, this is criminal. You got to report it. I said, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. And so he said, well, I have a lawyer. I want you to go and talk to the lawyer. And so I went home that night, and all I could think about is, I don't know what to do. I had no idea what was going to go on after that point. So I went to the lawyer that next day, and when I showed him the letter, because I couldn't even repeat it, and she had written down all the details, and then she had scratched out the words that were sexual. And so he said, who scratched out all the words? I said, she did. And he says, wow, she described everything that we needed in detail. And it wasn't until I sat in his office that all of a sudden I started trembling, and it was like uncontrollable, because it all hit me when he repeated back to me what she had said. And so he said, what do you want to do at this point? And I said, I want to do what's right. I want to report it. And so he actually went with me down to Child Protective Services. First of all, we picked her up at school. We went by school and picked her up, and he talked to her, and he told her where we were going and what we were going to do, and we were going to stop this. And I think she was relieved to think that this wasn't going to go on anymore. But we had no idea what was in front of us. Neither one of us. Right. I got to CPS, and he turned us over, and then he left. And so here I am, and they said, well, we're going to take her in the back, and we're going to question her. And so I'm marching behind my door, and they said, oh, no, you can't come. And that was the first fearful piece that I had, that somebody was going to take my child away from me. Because when she went back in that room, I had no idea what the process was or anything. And so it is hard being on that side of it, and then being on the side of, this is a person that you're married to, this is a person that you're intimate with, this is a person that you have shared your life with, and you're sitting there going, how come I didn't see anything? And I think we don't see anything because we don't know what to look for. And then when we know what to look for, sometimes we don't believe what we're seeing.
And how did you, from 12 to when you were in that room at 12, I could imagine that had to be a very intimidating situation.
Very much so. You know, you have people that, first of all, it's hard to talk about from the beginning, and that's
Exactly.
why I wrote a letter. And then to have these strangers asking you all these questions, and, you know, you having to answer them. And, you know, being that it was a male that
Really?
assaulted me.
Oh, I thought it was a male questioning
Yeah,
you.
a male that was assaulting me. You know, I don't even recall of all the people that were in there, because it was, you know, so many years ago. But I do know that it was a very tough time to talk about. It took me years to really open up and to be able to, you know, express their feelings, because they were there, but it was like you get tearful and hurt every time you try to talk about it. So,
Do you do speaking engagements as well?
I have spoke at a couple engagements, riding on with my mom and and a few other people. I don't speak as much right now, but I'm sure then in the future I probably will increase that number of engagements.
You want to say something?
No,
Oh.
I'm just listening. Like,
I just think that, for one, it is absolutely amazing that you two are sitting across the table from each other,
yes.
because it shows for me, it shows everybody that we can heal.
Yes.
If we're honest, if we can speak it, if we can just let out how we feel, we have the ability to heal. And that's so amazing to me. Thank you, guys.
And that's what we want. We want to be able to help individuals heal first. People ask me, had I forgiven my ex-husband? And I said, yes, I have, because I don't hold anything against him. I see him as a very broken person who really needs help, but I'm not going to put anybody in his path that he'll even have the opportunity to hurt. But I was so encouraged when I see my daughter, and it's hard because I saw her at her worst. I saw her when she was hurting so bad, she would climb under the covers and wouldn't come out. And this one time I just picked up the covers and I crawled under the covers with her and pulled the covers over us and held her in my arms and sang to her, Jesus loves me. And I thought, we're going to make it through this. And so now to see her as an adult and seeing her grow and seeing her heal is taking years. But what she told me and shared with me not too long ago, she says, Mom, I've forgiven Dad. And those words are life changing.
Yeah.
When somebody finally gets to the point that they can forgive their person who has abused them, that was in a position to take care of them. And so that's what keeps us going. So I look at her and she's an inspiration to me because I see her growing, I see her developing, and like she said, I've had a few speaking engagements where I asked her to come along, and I was surprised when she said yes. And I'm actually going to be teaching a focus study coming up here in the fall. It'll be 7 weeks, and we'll be talking about this, and I asked her if she would come in and give her testimony about how she forgave her father.
How did you muster that?
Wow.
And I'm a crybaby, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to cry myself.
It took a lot of years. I just felt like that, you know, when you don't forgive, it just continue the pain. Your pain just keeps enduring, and it keeps enduring. And one of the things I had the hardest time with was God. And I always felt like I gave my life to the Lord when I was very young. And I felt like God wasn't there to protect me. Why did he allow this to happen to me? And so I had and then you're going to give me parents, and have a father that's going to do this to me. And he's supposed to be the one that protects me. So I had a lot of issues with that. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized that I was chosen, that God allowed this to happen to me for a reason, and that I have helped so many people along the path. And it was just my calling to be able to help somebody else. And so I know that in order to help somebody else, you have to learn to forgive and grow and heal, because there are other people that are broken, and you're just going to hurt them worse if you don't grow. And then I also have a daughter, and I wanted to be protective over her. I wanted her not to grow up with a lot of brokenness because of me. So I know that was another reason why I needed to heal and forgive my father. And so now he is out of prison. He has served a lot of time, most of pretty much my whole life. And I can actually talk to him, without feeling any anger or anything. It's more like, he took away from me, but it's more feeling sorry for him, because he was a broken man, and he never really said he was sorry, but I could tell he had a lot of remorse, and he did, come pretty close to it. He say that, forgive me for not being the father that, I should have been. And so I took that as an apology pretty much, because that's probably as close as I'm going to get to it. And that was enough for me. But even if he didn't do that, I know that I wanted, God to be glorified. So, and like I said, to help other people. And so that I wasn't going to hold on to that anger or bitterness.
So you can actually say that brought closure for you?
Yes, it did. It brought a lot of closure. It relieved a lot of anxiety and just anger, and it's a big weight on you when you don't forgive other people.
Right.
It hurts you worse than it hurts them.
Yep.
And it affects a lot of people around you, because you're very angry, you're bitter, and it doesn't help you emotionally, physically, your body breaks down. A lot of things happen when you don't forgive. And I just was not going to let, I felt like so much had been taken away from me in my youth. I was not going to continue to let that to take away my adult life as well.
You are so strong.
Mm-hmm, she is. She is.
I will hope that I can get there to the forgiveness part. I'm working on it. You've just helped me
step by step
work on the forgiveness part.
It's more for you. It's more for the person than it is for the other person. It's more for you. Yeah.
And was there, through this process, did you guys go through a rough patch in your relationship to get here? Or were you guys always just united from the time from 12 on up to today?
I always, 'cause she's my oldest child, okay, and I always had a bond with her. And when she said she gave her life to the Lord when she was 4 years old, I was there with her, okay, teaching her, going places with her, doing things with her. I felt like there was a little gap there, and when you know what to look for, it's different. But when you don't know what to look for, the signs are there, but you don't even know there's signs. I was working a full-time job and going to school at night because my ex-husband said, why don't you go back? Because I graduated and I got married at 16. So I never went to college, even though I was an honor student, okay? And so he said, why don't you go back to school? And so I'm thinking, wow, that's good. He helps me with the kids, he cooks, and I'm going to school happy-go-lucky. And my daughter tells me, she says, Mom, you don't spend enough time with me anymore. And I think I remember that, but maybe in that time period is when she told me what was going on. All I remember later is her saying, I didn't spend enough time with her, and she was always with him. So after all this happened, there was a lot of guilt on me. I had so much guilt running off of me, so much blame that if I had done this, if I hadn't done that, then all this wouldn't happen. So I'm trying to deal with all that. I'm trying to deal with the fact of him being arrested and him, taking all this money to get a lawyer, so therefore we don't have the money that we need to run the family, and then trying to go to counseling, even though I had insurance, trying to come up with all those co-pays. And then I had 2 younger children at the time, and they were reacting. Her brother was against her, turned against her, and said she broke up our family. So here she's hurting, and her brother is accusing her of breaking up our family. He's angry with me because I won't take his dad back, and he's rebelling against me. So it was, I can't even imagine, if it wasn't for God, how we made it through those days. They were rough days. That's why I wrote the book. That's why I want to be there to help people, because it is a process. But the alternative to that is to sweep it under the rug, which doesn't help anybody. So you have to go through the painful experiences. I remember the worst thing that I did. I look back now, and I can't believe that I did it. But after we went through counseling for 2 years, because he had a suspended sentence, and so he had a terrible accident that he caused himself, and he was in the hospital and incapacitated for like 4 months. And it was like God told me, go and take care of him. And I went like, now I know I heard God's voice before, but that could not be God. But that was my healing, and that was when I had to forgive, because before that time, I just prayed for him to die. I did. I just said, God, you know what? You kill a lot of people. If you kill him, I'd be all right with that, because if I can't kill him, because I'm going to go to jail. And I really felt that. I was sincere in feeling that way until God started dealing with me about how much he had forgiven me, how Christ had come for us to redeem us, and all that I knew became alive to me, that you got to live it. You can't just read it. You can't just have people tell you about it. It's a part of your life you got to live. And so for me going through that process, I think I might have been a little distant from my daughter because I was trying to deal with all these things that I was going through. But I saw her, and I saw her hurting, and I couldn't fix her hurt. So we just managed to make it through that. I don't think I ever turned on her, and I don't think she ever turned on me. But
But it was a process.
But it was a process. It was a process of her not talking to me, and that hurt a lot because she always talked to me. Even when this was going on, we talked about things. And so to try to talk to her, and she said, I don't want to talk. I just don't want to talk. And so we went through that, and I think that was the hardest part. But then after that, going through Parents United, counseling, and all of that, me and her father got back together again. And I look back today and I thought, boy, you were stupid. But anyway, you think that a person has healed. And that's the thing that you don't know, that this is not something that a person does. It's almost who they are. And if they can't find a victim right here, they'll look somewhere else for one. And so I wanted so badly, because I came from a broken home, grew up in the projects with a single mom. I wanted so much to have a family. And I thought that all that we went through, we can work this thing back together. So he came back home, and it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. And I knew that I had made a mistake of trying to do this without professional help that's really helping you through it. Because he did say, well, when I come back home, we're going to continue the counseling and all that. But you know, when he got back home, he said, I ain't going to counseling. I ain't going down there to tell them people my business and all this. And so now I'm stuck because I can't get him back out now, because I have no grounds to get him back out now because he hasn't done anything. So it wasn't until he had a daughter outside of our marriage, we tried to make that work. And I walked in on him one day and he was molesting her. And that's when I reported it. He went back to prison. And I just want people to know that a perpetrator will say whatever they need to say to get out of trouble, to make it look like, okay, I'm working on my family, I'm doing right, I'm trying to help myself. But all the time, he was sneaking back and found him another victim. So, yeah, it became rough between us, but I think when he molested his other daughter outside of our marriage, I can actually say that Antoinelle really jumped in there to help her younger brothers and sisters to really make it through this, because this is the second time around. And so, yeah.
And how can people buy your book?
You can buy my book on Amazon. You can look up my name, Sharon Dansby, or look up Journey Through the Furnace, God is There. Or you can check out our website for Maximizing God's Woman. It is www.maxgodswoman.org. And the book is there, and you can buy the book through there also.
Okay. Brian, I think we'll go to the break.
These days, conversations about sexual violence and harassment towards women have infiltrated popular culture, the news, heck, they're all over our timelines. And there's one group that's almost invisible when it comes to these conversations: Black girls and women. So why are we being ignored? Today's baggage: silencing Black sexual violence survivors. Far too often, Black women are the victims of sexual violence. Get this, about 1 in 5 Black women in the United States have experienced rape in their lives. And just under half of Black women said that they experienced sexual violence other than rape. But let's talk about the culture of sexual violence towards Black women in America, a country with an unequivocally racist and sexist history. The fact is that Black women aren't being heard.
Black women have just walked unprotected through history in this world.
Deborah Gray White is the Board of Governors Professor of History and Professor of Women's and Gender Studies at Rutgers University. Yeah, and she's kind of a big deal. When did we first see this idea that Black women were sexually promiscuous?
This notion that Black women are promiscuous in America evolved. When whites went to Africa, they actually saw African women unclothed in their native environment, So they immediately associated that with promiscuity for both men and women.
What happened once enslaved Africans were brought to America and slave laws were created?
Black women get absolutely no protection. No one is really policing her body. Policing of her body occurs to the extent that she can prevent it from happening. Now you have to make it her fault because, these people are promiscuous. She's lascivious. She asked for it. She wanted it. As long as she is the property of a slave master, he can do with her anything he wants to do. It's economically beneficial to the master because all of the children that come from this Black woman, whether they are his or not, they become slaves.
When slave masters raped their slaves, it wasn't considered illegal. But when the enslaved defended themselves, there were grave consequences, like in the case of an enslaved woman named Celia. As a teen, Celia was sold to a white slave owner who regularly raped her and impregnated her twice. Celia later began a relationship with a fellow slave who demanded that she end relations with her slave owner. When the slave owner tried to rape her again, Celia killed him and was later sentenced to death by hanging.
There's no sympathy for her, the fact that she had been raped for over 4 years, repeatedly. The Black man who is a part of this whole relationship bear no responsibility for his actions.
How did the rights of Black women who were victims of sexual violence change after emancipation?
African American women immediately try to exercise their new citizenship rights by pressing charges against both Black and white men who raped them.
Like in the case of Reese Taylor, a Black woman who was gang raped in 1944 by 6 white men. One of the assailants even confessed, but 2 grand juries, both full of white men, would not indict the rapists. Because liberty and justice for all? In her book, Aren't I a Woman?, Dr. White found that for a period of nearly 100 years after slaves were freed, there wasn't a single Southern white man convicted of raping or attempting to rape a Black woman, though it was fairly common during that era. But Black women weren't just assailed by white men.
Most Black women who are raped, they're not by white men today. And if Black men tend to be perpetrators of sexual abuse on Black women, then we need to talk about that.
You see, the legacy of sexual violence towards Black women and our subsequent silencing runs deep. As sexual violence towards Black women goes on, one woman's changing the narrative, turning victims into survivors.
Sexual violence is not about sex, right? It's about power, and it's about the abuse of power.
Tarana Burke is an activist and a sexual assault survivor. She founded Me Too in 2006. Burke's movement supports survivors and calls on the public to bring sexual violence to an end. Although Me Too has solidified its place in American culture, Black girls and women are still largely left out of the conversation.
It's painful to watch Black women not be included in this popular narrative. It's painful to see people preface the pain of other people over ours and not give any credence to the trauma, the layers of trauma that happen in our community.
Burke says that there is an internalized oppression in the Black community. This oppression has caused Black people to protect Black male predators because the community values them. We're so used to seeing Black men oppressed by the state and forces of systemic racism that we can't help but wonder, would we be doing the same?
This decision becomes that, do I protect the name and good, the legacy of this Black person versus the people who they harmed? And that's a struggle we've had around for a long time. We are literally in a moment where Russell Simmons has 18 credible allegations against him that range from sexual harassment to sexual assault. Nobody has labeled him a predator. Nobody said he's ravishing the community. Nobody's talked about that. And he hasn't been accountable for it either. It's not new to Bill Cosby or R. Kelly or anybody else.
While Bill Cosby is serving jail time after he was convicted of sexual assault, Russell Simmons and R. Kelly deny all current allegations against them. About Robert Sylvester Kelly. Lifetime recently released a gut-wrenching documentary, Surviving R. Kelly, that shed light on the depths of his alleged sexual deviancy. The man's been accused of statutory rape, sexual assault, and having a sex cult. Allegations even come from a woman he exchanged vows with.
I'm actually R. Kelly's ex-wife.
Andrea Kelly is among the dozens of women who have come forward to speak out against her ex-husband. She met Robert Kelly at 19, and they were married for over a decade. During that time, Andrea Kelly says that she was physically, verbally, and economically abused.
It was a whirlwind. The bruises go away. I suffer from PTSD still. Hummers used to be a thing that would trigger me because that was the first time that I really thought that man was going to kill me, and it was in the backseat of a Hummer because I thought this Hummer is going to eventually be my casket.
But Andrea got the courage to come forward after she saw Geronda Pace, another woman who spoke out against R. Kelly on The Real.
He would slap you in your face, and he would physically harm you, and he would put you in a room, and he would lock you in the room for days.
And I felt like she came forward and it fell on deaf ears. But if we are to be very real, because we're women of color, it keeps falling on deaf ears. Because if that was Amber on The Real, if that was Becky on The Real, if that was Hannah on The Real, Andrea Kelly wouldn't be sitting here today. We'd be done with this.
And Andrea Kelly brings up a valid point. These cries have fallen on deaf ears because R. Kelly's alleged victims are Black girls and women. But it's bigger than R. Kelly. Y'all, let's talk about what's happening to Black girls. A Georgetown law study, Girl Interrupted, found that compared to white girls, Black girls from ages 5 to 14 were perceived to need less protection, need to be supported less, need to be comforted less, are more independent, and know more about sex. This study alone proves that Black girls aren't looked at as girls at all. Throughout history, men of all races tried to exercise control over the bodies of Black girls and women, asserting their power to dictate how and when we have sex. But it's a new day.
This thing is not just about our individual bodies. It is about how the insidiousness of sexual violence tears at the fabric of our communities. And I think people are finally getting that, and they're committing to this work in a real way.
Your experiences and your voice matter. Black girls, Black women, continue to speak out. Even if the world doesn't hear you, we hear you.
What you guys think?
Wow.
That's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
What is the part that stands out the most, Mr. E?
The whole thing. I mean, I'm not a woman. All I can say right now is just wow. You know, it's this whole experience is putting me in a different mindset and things for me to look more into, because I have a 15-year-old daughter. You know, I just want to make sure she's okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and talk to her more. We're talking and we talk, but talk to her even more. You know, I have nieces, and you know, it's like, well, let me really talk to them. Let me see what's going on. Make sure, you know, things are okay. Because this is an eye-opening experience, and even directing this play and reading the play, it's like, whoa, you know, the things that I've seen, but it's been a few years. But for it to come back around, and then it's like, okay, we really got to do something about this. We really have to make this, you know, the forefront, the focus, not just the focus, but a focus in the Black community, in all communities, really. You know, this abuse goes on in all different races and in areas across the whole world. But we have a voice, and we have a stand. We have a play that's coming out that's going to, you know, help project this and expose it, and talk more about it. And yeah, you all need to come see this play.
Yes, definitely.
You need to come see this play.
So, what resources do we need today? Because I'm also doing a nonprofit called Empowerment Queens Rules, and my goal with it is to work on healing the family as a unit, because I don't think we're doing that. Where we may heal one person, but like yourself, a mother, the daughter, we need some resources to kind of help tie that together. I can't imagine going through that without any resources or knowledge, or how do you seek out help for something like that? Like, I think that's what we need. So what resources, do you know of any resources out there that can help? Since your incident, have there been any resources that you know of that help families with these types of situations?
There are, most of them are educational. And I use curriculum from a organization called Darkness to Light, because they are internationally known. They have the resources to do the research, and they put together a pretty good training to talk about sexual abuse and using the testimony of survivors. I think a lot of times people aren't ready to deal with the issue, because if the survivor is ready to deal with the issue, their mothers aren't. And that's what I see. We have a support group at our church called Tamar, and women come in that have been sexually violated, whether it's child sexual abuse, whether it's rape. And in the child sexual abuse cases, a lot of the women are more angry at their mothers than they are at their perpetrators. And a lot goes on there as to the fact, like Antoinette was saying, you're looking at the people who were supposed to protect you that either didn't believe you, because a lot of girls do disclose, and their mothers shut them up because they don't want to believe that that happened, or that man was the provider of the family, and we're going to protect that because we don't know how we're going to make it without him taking care of us. Or it might be an emotional thing that she's so connected to him, she doesn't want to lose him. And so a lot of girls feel like I was the sacrificial lamb here, because I was shut up and I was told to bear it, whether it was verbally told to bear it or just ignoring the fact that you disclosed it. That now that anger is with the mothers, and the mothers are the nurturers of the family. And so if you can't get the mother on board with the daughter, it's unlikely that you're going to get the other family members to come if they're close to the mothers too. And so you see a lot of those cases. I'm mentoring a young lady now who's dealing with her mother, and this has been going on for 20 years. So the resources available, first of all, is education, and second of all is support groups, where people feel like this is a safe place for me to come and talk. And I believe that as the survivors have an opportunity to talk then and support each other, because there's a lot going on there, that a lot of emotion that has been suppressed is now going to come out in those groups, that you have somebody else to say, you know, you're not losing your mind, you're not going crazy, I felt that same way, or whatever, so they can get healed. And then once they get healed, then try to reach out to bring other family members in. But I think it's a danger to try to bring other family members in before the survivor actually gets healed.
I did not tell my mom a lot of the stuff that was going on with me, but I was very angry at her for stuff that she didn't even know was happening. She just thought maybe, I was just out, she tried to get help. She put me in counseling, but I was just so angry at her because I felt like she was supposed to protect me. But again, she was a single mother. She had 3 daughters. She had to work. My sister is hydrocephalic. So there was just always something that she would have to handle. And by me being the oldest, I always felt like I had to be strong. And I just had to handle it. But I was very angry, rebellious. And how she found out was through me lashing out. So I'm pretty sure that, that was pretty hard for her to handle and hear in that context. So I wish that there was something that we could have gone through too that would have helped us, navigate through it.
Sometimes in some communities there are, like especially if you're in a municipality, you can go to the municipality and you can ask for resources and stuff like that. If there's anybody in the community that has either a nonprofit or a private group or whatnot to seek help. It doesn't always have to be through the county, but it's through like individual cities have mayors and they have civic meetings and stuff like that. You can go to those and you can inquire that way as far as getting the resources and stuff, because a lot of it's not going to be advertised.
Right.
A lot of it's not going to be advertised. You have to actually do your own footwork, and it's not so much looking it up online and trying to Google it and whatnot. You actually have to go in your community, because some communities offer it, some communities don't. And some communities will send you to a community or rec center that has a meeting once a month or something like that, where you can actually contact or reach out to someone and talk to someone.
Well, I want to, before we end time, I want to thank you guys for coming on the show. I really, really appreciate it. If you want to tell them again about your nonprofit and how they can order your book.
Okay. The nonprofit is, you can find it at www.maxgodswoman.org, and you can find my book there, or you can go on Amazon, and it's called Journey Through the Furnace, God is There. And I did want to close with one thing. Oprah Winfrey has been a strong supporter of child sexual abuse and helping people. And I was looking at a documentary she did, and one of the things she said that stuck out to me after she had a counselor talk about what goes on in the mind, what goes on in the brain, and how the brain is stopped developing at a certain point because of the trauma that happens when you're a child. And she said, I stopped saying what's wrong with that person. I now say what happened to them. And I thought that is powerful when we see children like yourself acting out, or children like my daughter who's withdrawn. You stop saying, I don't know what's wrong with those kids, but you think, what happened to those kids? What are they really going through? And that's where my heart is, to helping the children and then helping the survivors. I'd like to talk to you offline about what you want to do with your nonprofit, because that's our next stage we want to go into, is building support groups for women who are survivors.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. And Mr. E, I know you'll be back. Thank you for coming. I want to thank everybody. Please get your tickets to Out of Time, the play.
Yep.
This family is, I really want you guys to come, because you will see a lot of similarities in some of your stories in these characters. And actually the main character's name is Tamar.
Okay.
So thank you guys. You can get your tickets at outoftimetheplay.eventbrite.com. Mr. E, do you have anything you want to say? We have like 2 minutes about the play and your direction that you're taking it.
My direction.
You got 2 minutes. Oh, we got 1 minute.
1 minute. Just come out and see the play. It's very interesting. There's a lot of twists in it. It's a lot of
meat and potatoes.
You read my mind. I was thinking about meat and potatoes, but it's a lot in it, and having fun directing it. We had a great cast. The cast is off the hook.
We got the wrap up. Thank you guys for coming out and watching. Thank you for coming. See you next week.